7 p.m. We have a quorum. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have Mr. Robinson and Mr. Pacheco online. I'll need a motion to approve the electronic participation.
Second.
Please.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Klein.
Aye.
Mr. Coe.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Motion passed 4-0.
Anyone like to speak? No, sir. No speaker. All right, you should have the meeting minutes from December 3rd, 2020. Please review those for any changes, additions, deletions, corrections. If there are no changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Okay. Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Klein.
Aye.
Mr. Coe.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
All right. Village Manager Hedges has a few items tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. First item on the agenda is we would ask for a motion to approve a professional services agreement with EEI for the intersection improvements at State and Route 72 in the amount of $53,777. I'll give you just a very brief introduction, and then Tim Paulson's on the line with us with more details. You're all aware that this project's been in the planning stages for many years. And in the last 6 months or so, the process with IDOT has really ramped up. A lot of drawings, a lot of easement discussions and negotiations. And we're getting very close to what will end up being an intergovernmental agreement between IDOT and the village, probably sometime in mid to late January. In the meantime, we really need to get started on the engineering work in order to meet their deadlines. Their plan is to bid the contract in June next year and let the contract July 1st. So they should be, that appears to be on schedule at this point. In the process of evaluating the improvements that the state plans to do, the village, as you're aware, long before I was here, the village had some other things that we wanted done at the intersection. So there is a shared cost of 20% match that we have budgeted for previously. That's around $276,000. That number we expect to increase slightly because it's been several years since IDOT gave us that number. In addition to that, this summer, both Mark Montgomery and Dave Starrett and EEI walked the intersection, looked at the drawings of where all of our infrastructure is under the intersection in order to see if there's anything under there that need to be repaired, and there's quite a bit. I'll let Tim go into the details, but we have water lines, sanitary sewer lines, and storm sewer lines, some that are too close together under the current circumstances, others that are old and leaking. It's just as we had the policy on streetscape, not to put streetscape over bad infrastructure, or I think I might have used the term lipstick on a pig. The same is true at that intersection. So quite a bit of expense of village infrastructure under the intersection. One thing we did do is we pushed back a little bit and asked if IDOT would consider paying for some of our own infrastructure. And we were fortunate that they have agreed to pay for $135,000 of it. But that still leaves a big number for us. After Tim discusses the specifics of the project and their contract, which staff does recommend, I'll just take a minute and mention what I did the last time we spoke about an EEI contract. As you all know, we're allowed to bid only for qualifications for engineering contracts. This is one that we feel EEI is particularly qualified for. They've been working on this intersection for the village for a long time, a decade or more. And in this case, we were not able to get comparative quotes because the the drawings are really not even available to share yet with any other engineering firms. I will also just add that the total dollar amount, which is in your packet, there's a summary provided by EEI. The total dollar amount for the project is still somewhat in flux. That won't be finalized until sometime in January, and we'll bring back to you the intergovernmental agreement. So with that, Tim, if you could outline a little bit the expenses and summarize the expenses, please.
Yes, thank you, Jay. Thanks for the introduction and the background information. I'll try not to repeat too much of what you've already said. But as you mentioned, in July of this year, or in the spring, we received the pre-final plans from IDOT. And at that time, they asked us to review the plans and look at possible utility conflicts and improvements that the village would recommend. And in July of this year, the village sent a request after that review for a number of improvements that the village needed to make in that intersection, as well as some conflicts that IDOT had identified with our existing utilities that would need to be addressed at the time of the improvements. So to quickly just go over what those improvements are, there is a sanitary sewer improvement in the intersection, and that is replacement of existing sanitary sewer. There's an old sewer line in the middle of the road. There are two manholes that are brick manholes and an old section of storm sewer that ties into a newer sanitary sewer. And, the old brick manholes are subject to leakage and infiltration into the system, which we are always trying to eliminate. That section of sanitary sewer only serves to collect a service from the opposite side of the road. So we would be replacing one of the manholes with a new manhole, running a new service, and then abandoning the existing service and removing one of the manholes. And that is an estimated cost of $73,000 that would be the village's responsibility. Then there are a number of water main items. There's one along State Street on the west side of State Street. There's an existing village water main, an older water main, a 6-inch water main that runs from Dutchess to the intersection. That has been identified for replacement because it conflicts with the IDOT improvements and will have to be moved. In that case, that's the case where we were able to talk to IDOT about them taking on some of the cost responsibility for that, because of the fact that it is in the village's right-of-way and it's impacted by IDOT's improvements that they're doing within the village's right-of-way. They agreed to take the construction cost of $136,000 for that water main improvement. Then there is a water main improvement that the village has long wanted to do, which is to connect the dead-end water main that we just talked about replacing, coming down State Street from Dutchess, and bring that across the intersection and loop it to the water main on the other side, which is a significant benefit for the village water system. And it makes a lot of sense to do it this time while the intersection will be torn up. And so that is a new improvement. So that cost would be on the village, and that's identified at $110,000. And then the last water main improvement is one that was identified by IDOT as a conflict. They are replacing the box culverts underneath Route 72. And we have a water main along the south side of 72 that has to be relocated because it conflicts with that box culvert. Because it's within the IDOT right-of-way, then they have determined that that is the village's responsibility to pay for that improvement, estimated at $112,000. And the full scope of that, whether we relocate it away from the box culvert or go underneath the proposed box culvert, could impact that cost. It might be a little less than that, but that's what it's identified, what IDOT identified as the improvement to go underneath the box culvert. That's a summary of the improvements. And then as noted in our memo, the IDOT is requiring the village to provide the engineering plans for these improvements for the village's utilities. So we provide engineering plans and specifications and in the required IDOT format, and then they put those into their engineering plans, and it all goes out to bid as one large project. So IDOT has a flat engineering fee that they use in these projects of 15%. So if you look at the table that's in my memo, the item that they're paying for, the $136,000 State Street water main replacement, they will give a 15% design engineering credit to the village in the intergovernmental agreement for that item. So that it's just wanted to note that is a credit for that one item that they're taking responsibility for. The village will do the engineering, and IDOT will give a credit for that. And then as far as the timing, the IDOT got back to us just before Thanksgiving with their evaluation of the costs and the improvements that they would pay for and the village would have to pay for. And then they asked the village to provide engineering plans in a very quick turnaround. They were asking for them at the end of this month, which is not something that we'd be able to accomplish, but we believe we can get them to them by the middle to the end of January. They have a long process and they'll have to review it and return it for revisions to us. And then they have various departments that they go through for final approvals internally. They also will have to revise their environmental statements or preliminary environmental assessment that they've done with information that we provide them with our plans. That is also a timely process. So in order to keep them on the June letting, they want us to get these plans done as quickly as possible. So that is why we're bringing this to you tonight. We would like to get started right away and have those done within about a month or so.
I would just add, in terms of funding the project, we had set aside, Lori set aside for several years now, about $176,000 that's already reserved for this project. The village's cost is going to be closer to $500,000 now with these additional costs for our own infrastructure. So the timing on that is that 80% of that will be due in September of next year, 21. So that would be $400,000, and then the balance would be due about a year later after the project is completed. So the plan right now, and we haven't completed our capital budget. We have the spending side of it pretty well completed staff-wise, but Lori's still working on revenue forecasts. So right now, the plan would be to use that for the $400,000 that's due next year would be to use the $176,000 we have set aside. And then you all recall that back in the spring, Rebuild Illinois granted us $60,000 twice a year for 3 years. So we've already received the first two payments of $120,000. By this time next year, or by next September, we should have received 4 of those payments, which would be $240,000. So that would add up to $415,000 or $15,000 more than we need for this project for the 80% that's due next year. Now, when we actually get our revenue forecast, there may be other options, but that at least is the tentative plan for funding this project as of now.
I do have a question.
Yes.
We had talked about this for a long, long time. I think that if we're going to have this whole thing tore up, I think we should seriously consider putting in a computerized bulletin board over at Henpeck while that intersection's tore up. We've talked about this. You'll have maximum exposure on 72. We don't have to look at chicken dip sign that, is 4 months out of date. Mm-hmm. And whatever the cost would be, if they couldn't factor in the cost, we can go to the park district, the library, the township, and see if they want to share. If they don't want to share, then we do it and we don't let them use it.
Well, even if you don't want to go to the sign aspect of it right now, but we need to get power at that part.
No, let's do the sign.
No, I understand, but I don't think that they're going to include the installation of a sign in this agreement. I think that's going to be on. No,
but while them guys are drawing this up, they can come up with a projected cost for it.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think that we need, I agree with him 100%. But we talk about getting power over there because we talked about, you know, in the wintertime doing it like Christmas tree or holiday display, or even putting lights up in the gazebo or something of that nature, but there's nothing over there.
Tim, is this an appropriate time to get power over to Henpeck Park?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with, the details of what you guys are talking about, but it could be. I don't know that it would be part of, IDOT's improvement, but it could be something that we could coordinate with them. I'd have to get some more information on that.
EEI would have to have that included in a drawing for us anyways.
Right. Okay, let me work with them and I'll bring something back to you.
But this is the time to do it.
That makes sense, I agree.
That was. Any other questions or comments?
Are we committed to this project already?
Yes, we're way down the road. It's been,
I mean, if we sign contracts, are we 100% committed with IDOT that no matter what, we have to go forward?
no, we have not signed any contracts. We've sent several correspondence back and forth. Mayor has assigned some correspondence, I received correspondence back from them. I don't know what the process would be. I could ask Tim if he's aware of what the process would be if you wanted to back out entirely of our share. Where are we in that process, Tim, as far as you know?
Well, they are going to be giving us the draft intergovernmental agreement shortly, and that's the final contract between the village and IDOT. But the village did sign, the letter of intent in 2016 for those other non-utility items that we talked about, the 176,000. Some of the utility items would have to be done regardless, and IDOT would more or less, charge the village for those if they had to address the conflicts themselves. But some of the improvements are things that the village has asked to include because it makes good sense to do them at this time.
When they redo those box culverts, will that eliminate quite a bit of the flooding there at State Street?
Yes, that will eliminate the flooding that happens at State and 72, the overtopping of the road. It'll move.
Which would substantially reduce Dave's budget for overtime for the floods, so he can divert that money into an end loader.
Trustee Kelly.
So when you asked why would we back out, my thought is 505,000, if that's the cost of the village. I can think of residents on Panama, on Park, on actual homes that get flooded over just flooding over 72, that I think this money would be better spent to. That's why I'm saying it. It's not like 72 and State is crumbling and falling apart. The road's not in bad condition.
But there's no sidewalk for any pedestrians to cross. It floods, so the public works
Have
has.
we done a study to see how many pedestrians go across it without a sidewalk? I don't see anybody usually walking across, and if there is, it's like 3 or 4.
A lot more than you think.
Kids, and they're mostly kids.
There's actually a bus stop there too.
And they dart from Peterson's parking lot to the BP or to the Marathon. And it's not just the intersection work. There's gonna be a shared bike path from State Street all the way to Schmidt Drive on the south side of 72. There'll be a three-way crosswalk at least.
And the bike path connects to what other bike path apparently?
There's an 8-foot shared, they call it a shared sidewalk, not a bike path.
I'm just saying, $500,000 can go a long way to resolving other things that we have said in this meeting that we don't have. Money for. We can't do these things because we don't have money for it yet. Now we're gonna drop $500,000 on an intersection.
We've been talking about this for years.
I get it. I wasn't in those conversations, and this is now 4 years later that it's kind of up for a vote, and that's $500,000.
It's been longer than that. I mean,
I'm just saying it's worth an evaluation of, is this still a priority of the village? A lot changes in 4 or 5 years, however long you've been doing it.
You have to look, for our 500,000, we're getting a, $4 million investment because 80% is gonna be paid by the state.
For the road work on 72, yeah.
So, and sidewalks. Sidewalks are
Whole
gonna
project.
run north on State quite a ways. New sidewalks that there currently isn't.
Well, the box culvert
So on
crosses
the
under
west side.
the State Street at north of the Chicken Dip. The one on 72, which is gonna, should eliminate the flooding that tops over 72, then tops over the Chicken Dip's parking lot and into the creek by the old video store. So I mean, the investment itself, for what we're getting on this whole project, which redoes the whole, there's new streetlights, there's new street lighting.
Stoplights.
Crosswalk.
And the fire department's been involved with the initial plans, right? They were gonna get the radios or something like that on the top of it, so that they can take control of the signal.
So if we increase the box culverts there, have we done a study, or EEI, have you done an environmental study of whether or not the creek can withstand the increased capacity that wouldn't go over the roads and into the chicken dip and would stay within the creek, and how that would affect houses downstream?
So IDOT did the hydraulic study several years ago in their design process, and we did review that at the time. So it's the larger events that overtop the roadways now will now go under the culvert. In the culverts and under the roadways. So downstream of the roadways in that channel that runs behind the houses at Dutchess, those homes in those larger events will see the same amount of water. It'll just be coming through the culverts instead of over the roadway.
It's just.
That's correct, trustee Kelly. In fact, Dave Starrett and I went out and met with the homeowners to explain to them what we're doing. And if you notice the creek behind the houses on Dutchess, toward, at State and Dutchess, it goes west and then turns north and then crosses Dutchess.
Right.
Goes under Dutchess through another culvert. There's plenty of volume in that creek. The creek bed is probably 10 feet deep, and the water typically gets about 4 or 5 feet deep, even in the big rains. So I think Tim explained it exactly correctly, that the same amount of water will flow through to that creek and through that creek. It'll just become through the culvert instead of overtopping the roads. I do want to add one thing to your point, though. The village could choose not to replace some of the infrastructure that's under that intersection now. Those are expenses that we, the village staff, with EEI's advice, are recommending that we correct now, that we replace now, because they're old, as Tim explained, and some of them are in conflict too close for the current standards or specifications. So Tim, how much could we pull out of this agreement if we decided not to do our own infrastructure?
Well, I think, the sanitary sewer improvement, there would be some costs associated with some conflicts, but removing that old section of sewer and putting in a new service, that could be significantly reduced. And then the $110,000 72 water main crossing from the table, that is a proposed extension of water main from the current dead end water main at the intersection on the west side of State Street. That's a crossing of State Street to tie into the water main on the other side to, complete, a water main loop in that area.
So then,
And if we don't replace it and we skate by, and 2 years from now, all the construction has dislodged and it breaks, who has to pay to rip that pavement out and fix it?
we will. So it's my recommendation we go forward with this. And to your point, we have put together a 3-year capital budget, which I'll be sharing with you soon. How we will finance some of those other projects, and that'll be up to the board, beginning with the Public Works Committee and then the village board to address those specifically. This does take a big chunk of money. We had planned on $300,000 per year for 3 years for infrastructure improvement. That's what we've been working on. This will consume $500,000 of that. I should correct myself. This will consume $325,000 of that, which is roughly 1 year. The other $176,000 has been set aside for this project since 2016. So this will be roughly 1 year of our 3-year capital plan for infrastructure.
They presented this to us in the summer, I want to say 2015 or something of that nature, because it was hot and there were a lot of people in this room and we were on the schedule to do this and they kept kicking it for several years. And so they got the fire department involved and they got, it was a big deal. We were really looking forward to it. And that's another reason why Chicken Dip hasn't fixed their driveway, all to this point, because they know that if they fix it, the state's gonna come by and rip it all up.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, then I want to entertain a motion to approve a professional services agreement with EEI for State 72 in the amount of $53,777.
So moved.
Second.
Like, we can have it.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
There's Eric.
Okay.
Got it. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Krajewski,
Aye.
Mr. Coe,
Aye.
Ms. Klein. Aye. Mr. Kelly,
No.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
motion passed 5-1.
Mayor, you have in your packet a proposed ethics ordinance, and we would ask consideration and a motion to approve this amendment to the village code. This issue has come up several times during the course of my tenure here for just a little over a year now. Mayor Magnus and I have talked about it a couple of times, and I've spoken to Attorney Schuster, who drafted this ordinance for us. So this is something that I believe will improve the public perception of both staff and elected officials, and I believe it's timely with an election coming up soon. And so if you'd like further details about the ordinance itself, Mark Schuster's on the line with us. I would ask consideration and a vote in favor of this.
I think, can Mr. Schuster give us a 5-minute rundown through it, please?
Sure. It specifically addresses the issue of conflicts of interest. The state law that is referenced on page 2 in paragraph E addresses or interest in contracts by amounts of the contract, percentage of ownership of the company or entity that's involved in the contracting. But this other towns have added these types of statements about conflicts of interest as a means of providing additional guidance to public officials and employees when public expenditures may be involved.
I have one question. I'm an employee of the Park District. Can I vote on Park District stuff as long as I don't benefit from it financially?
You don't have a contract with the village
No.
in the park district. So yes.
Right. I would think you could, because you don't benefit directly. It's a matter of the public interest of the Park District as compared to the public interest of the village.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schuster, are there items in this, listed in this, that are not covered or included by the current state statute that already exists under the Public Option Prohibited Activities Act?
There's no statement like these that's in the Public Officials Prohibited Activities Act.
All right, let me rephrase that. They may not be worded this way, but in the act, it does talk about you can't have a financial interest or receive a financial interest, as you stated, for different dollar amounts. You can't represent a company on behalf of a contract negotiation with the entity that you're an elected official for. That's B. You also are, I thought, part of the act was about receiving gifts. So I'm just, they may not be worded that way, but I need to understand what is the additional restrictions of this that are not included in the state statute?
The state statute prohibitions are very exact as to the percentage of ownership and the amounts of the contracts that are involved. This is a more general statement of a caution to the public officials that if there's a personal advantage or disadvantage, then as described in these 4 paragraphs, that official should not vote on the particular matter at hand. It could be, you're going to ask me for an example. I was going to say it could be something other than a specific contract. But having said that, I'm not sure what a specific example of that would be.
And what, I don't don't see, my last question, I don't see what happens if there is a violation of this ordinance. And how is it determined that there's a violation since this is purposely broad language?
There are penalties in the village code when there's an intentional violation of the village rules. Those are set out in section 1-11-6. I can't quarrel with your statement that it may be difficult to enforce these prohibitions in the ordinance in front of you. But all the same, it's a good public statement that the Village of Hampshire public officials should avoid conflicts of interest as much as possible.
Trustee Kelly, if I could just add one point. I think particularly what we're attempting to say here is that in addition to not voting for something, for an elected official, it could also apply to a staff person who might have a beneficial interest in it. For example, might own a company or get a share or benefit for a sale or something to the village. So in this case, it specifically prohibits that an elected official or a staff member could benefit in any way by their company doing business with the village.
So is that not part of the employee handbook?
There is a.
No, I'm not expecting you to know 575 pages off the top of your head.
I can speak to that because Josh and I are working on that right now, and there is an ethics statement. It's closer to this than anything else, but that handbook does not apply, first of all, to elected officials. It applies only to employees.
Well, that part I got, but you had mentioned that this also covers employees, and my statement was more of I thought we already had something that covers employees.
This is more specific in that particular case than the current, and the handbook has not yet been adopted. We still have a lot of work to do on that, which we're working on, by the way, just in the last few weeks.
Come on, that was ready to go. Come on.
I think the first thing we're going to do is send it up to the lawyer. Trustee Klein.
The Christmas tree? Ready to go. Any other questions or comments?
I don't want to diminish the amount of time and effort you put into it. That's for real.
And then Mr. Pacheco, Mr. Robinson, any questions, comments?
No, none from me.
No, not for me either.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Relating to your question, Aaron, are you just questioning on whether we need another layer here of government?
I'm trying to figure out why we had paid for Mr. Schuster to write an ordinance for something that we already have a state statute that we're legally bound to follow. And why we're adding it's not a public statement, it's an ordinance, and it's a vague ordinance that I don't even know how you enforce. Because as Mr. Schuster said, you have to show intent. I think ethics is absolutely necessary when it comes to people on the board. I'm not arguing that point at all. I'm just saying this is the statements are so broad that you can argue, well, I didn't have intent on that. I wasn't unaware of that. And intent is already established in the state statute. So I'm trying to understand how this gives more restriction or makes it a stronger statement than what the state has already done for our village. Or is it that we're just doing something because somebody was upset? You know what I mean? And you can't enforce this ordinance then. It's like we went through an ordinance process on something that I don't know how we enforce this. Because to Mr. Schuster's point, we have to prove intent. How do you do that? I have no problem with the ethics. I'm just saying, Mr. Schuster, how do we enforce this?
That's a broad question, but the answer, I think, is, this section 1 says it's a conflict whenever the official action could result in a personal advantage. That would diminish the proof of intent that you've mentioned so far, Mr. Kelly. That is, it would lessen the burden to show that there was some actual intent if from the facts of the matter it was apparent that there could result some personal advantage. And I guess the rest of that answer is you enforce it as best you can, given the facts of the situation. Each situation is different.
So I just, again, I like the theory behind this, but let me propose this. So all of us as trustees and as the village president, we work for very different companies. do very different things. Are you saying that if at all, it could be seen that somebody could get a personal benefit in any way for the village to do business with the company they're affiliated with or work for, then the village, one, shouldn't do business with that company, and two, if they do business with that company, that elected official can be held accountable for violation of this ordinance?
That elected official should refrain from voting on the matter. That wouldn't prohibit the village from doing the business.
And the official could not benefit financially from that contract.
Right.
But if they refrain from
Whether they
voting,
voted for it or not,
really?
yes.
So, okay, I have a pretty personal example. I work for Buck Brothers as a part-time technology administrator, okay? I don't sell, I don't market, I don't any of that other stuff, right? But we do business with Buck Brothers as a
If you
village.
didn't receive permission for the work that the village did with Buck Brothers, that would be a violation.
Let's be a little more vague.
No,
If
right,
he receives a year-end bonus because Buck Brothers was profitable and we were one of their customers, it could be said that he benefited personally because of the business the village did.
That argument could be made. I think that would be a bit of a stretch, but yes.
I'm saying that
That's-
the vagueness that this exists,
But
that
then-
argument can be made.
Then going forward, anytime a Buck Brothers invoice would show up on bills payable, I would say that person should abstain if that's the case.
We can't start doing this. I mean, how do you know that, so if some other company is doing work for Buck Brothers, but he's still an employee, and that company did something and money got, not funneled, but paid back to Buck Brothers or compensated, and then he got a year-end bonus, now there's two companies. Then it could be 3, 4.
Yeah.
That don't make sense.
And the first, this first sentence of section 1 needs to be refigured out because it says no officer and no employee of the village shall engage in any act that is in conflict with the performance of his or her official duties. Shall not perform an act that creates a conflict of interest. Everything we're talking about is conflict of interest and personal gain. That first sentence says that you shall engage, that no employee shall engage in any act that is in conflict with the performance of his or her official duties.
Whenever official action results in personal advantage.
I don't think anybody's arguing the fact that this isn't important. I'm kind of an error in the fact that I don't.
Are you saying that the state statute as it is enough? That we don't need?
I guess, where did this come from?
Well, if I could, what prompted the writing of this? Why is it in front of us today? Does it have to do with the Facebook thing that where we're being accused of selling paper goods or what? Is that what it is, or is it something different?
Somebody's got to know.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's sprung from Mr. Maslinsky.
It is.
I should not be providing business cards and letterhead to the village. So the idea was to come up with an ordinance that then does not allow that. And I'm fine with that.
Right, and so this ordinance is really written in response to that, basically, correct?
So it's just a matter of putting something on our actual books besides the state regulations that says, and the village is only going to grow. They're only going to have more employees and trustee levels and mayor's level probably stay the same. But just going forward, you never know if somebody on the board can be an insurance agent. They want to try and lobby the village for all of our insurance policies. So something written to the effect that if you're an officer of another company looking to do business with the village, you have certain regulations you have to follow. And the intent behind the ordinance was, okay, here's what is spelled out. If you own the company, you should not be doing business with the company. I don't own Alpha Graphics. And when I owned Harvest Graphics, I never did any printing for the village because I knew that it was improper. So having something, I don't think many people are going to look up the state regulations on the conflicts of interest. It was an idea of putting it in our own book. But it's there.
And let me be clear.
Yeah, I tend, yeah.
Want to recommend something to you if we thought it was inappropriate. Let me make that clear.
Trustee Pajeki,
Yep.
you were trying to say.
Yes, sorry, guys. It's hard when I'm out here, but no, I generally support the notion. I do agree with Aaron and the notion that it's going to be difficult to enforce, et cetera, et cetera. But I think 90% of this stuff, 95% of this stuff is really just to send direction to people while they're working there, while they're elected, you know. And so, I mean, while I think a lot of our codes, if you go through all of it, some of it's tough to enforce. I mean, we obviously have gone through that with maintenance codes on buildings and things of that nature. You know, we kind of pick and choose which, you know, things based on, you know, whether we think it's going to be efficacious or not, or effective. And so in this same instance, if that's what we're trying to protect, and this ordinance clearly seems to me that it does protect that, I don't have any real issue with it. I think it's kind of an, you know, it's not a big deal, although it is imperfect, as Trustee Kelly has said. It's my opinion. I don't think it's a big deal, I guess.
Everybody okay with that?
I'm looking at the Village of Oak Lawn. They have something like this, an ordinance, an ethics, but I think it's a little clearer written. It says things like the solicitation or acceptance of gifts prohibited to be solicited or accepted under the act by any officer or employee of the village is hereby prohibited. The next thing says is hereby prohibited. And so if you do that, you are in direct violation. It isn't like an open-ended, we have to prove intent or anything. Do we want it to be more of a clear cut, or are you okay with the way that it's stated in this, or?
I think it needs to be more clear cut, and I can't find it. I've been reading it, but there's a section C here that said something about gifts in general. And it was very vague. And I thought of the example of EEI coming and giving us cups every year for Christmas. And by nature of the ordinance and the way that it was written, we would be then receiving gifts from a company we were doing business with, which would be in violation of the ordinance.
Right. Actually, EEI gave us all small speakers that are probably worth about $30 last year, and I was rather uncomfortable with that. I think that's probably inappropriate. This year, they did make a donation on behalf of all of us to a charity, which I think is more appropriate. So I will be enforcing that, at least at the staff level. We will not be accepting those kinds of gifts, except for consumables, which you might find behind you in that kitchen there, which some of our businesses like to drop off food once in a while.
Well, and that was more of an example that I was talking about. Okay, so that stuff happens. I mean, I work in education, and I get boxes of cookies or whatever from the technology vendors and stuff like that, and stuff you don't ask for.
Where they at?
But
The cookies are in there, help yourself.
But by nature of this, this ordinance, based on that, even if we didn't ask for a type situation and send you a box of cookie, technically you're in violation of the ordinance because it's.
No, you just have to donate. You can't keep it. But I think, what I would like to suggest, and we can vote on it, I would like to suggest a change. In that section 1, it just says, no officer and no employee of the village shall engage in any act that creates a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is defined as, and then A, B, C. And at the end of each of those A, B, C, D's, add is prohibited. So that there's no gray area. It's just this is if we have an ordinance, we have to be able to enforce it, right? To me, it adds a little bit more teeth, but that's just my suggestion. Sorry. It's hard to
Whoa, new chair for Christmas.
We found out Ryan was breaking all the chairs.
Who? It's not me, I promise.
Mr. Kelly, can you send that to Jay?
Oh, yeah.
Not right now. At some point, so we can redo this?
Well, could you make it in the form of a motion, or would you prefer to come back and do this at another time?
I can do that as part of the amendment.
Oh, you want to do that? Sure.
Yeah.
Right, then I'll entertain a motion, I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 20-29, an ordinance amending the village ethics regulations to add certain conflicts of interest rules and color read.
In section 1, for it to say no officer and no employee of the village shall engage in any act that is considered a conflict of interest. Conflicts of interest are defined as, and then we go straight to the subsections A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay. Got that?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, got it? Maybe, all right. Need a first and a second.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call, vote, please.
Mr. Coe,
Aye.
Mr. Gajeki,
Aye.
Mr. Reed,
Aye.
Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Klein. Aye. Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just make a very brief, provide a very brief update on COVID-19 tonight. I must admit, I still get a little bit of goosebumps when I talk about the vaccine. I was able to watch yesterday a live video of our new county chairperson at Sherman Hospital, observing the injection of the first vaccine in Hampshire, in our area. So I've included in your packet, first of all, a summary provided by the Abbott County of Aurora. And then I've also provided, the second attachment is, it's on IDPH letterhead, but it's the Illinois COVID-19 Prevention Ambassador. As I mentioned this at the last board meeting. I have signed up to become an ambassador. I mentioned, I think briefly, that this, in the minutes of the last meeting, it reads that this is somewhat like a neighborhood watch program for vaccines. The idea is to educate people in our neighborhood by word of mouth. And I know in the neighborhood I live in, I have quite a few neighbors that are apprehensive about the vaccine, and my role will be to communicate with them as an ambassador to explain, and there's a complete curriculum as an ambassador. Any one of us can sign up for that. There's actually a link in this document where you can sign up to become an ambassador. So I'm just thrilled that we're to the point where we now have a vaccine that's on the streets in our state, in our village. People are getting the vaccine. I did notice that in some states, they're actually downtown in Chicago, they're vaccinating seniors. I believe so far at the state level, it's just medical workers, medical employees. But there are seniors also receiving the second priority is seniors and living in assisted living facilities and nursing homes. So the vaccine is here. It's not here fast enough, but it's light at the end of the tunnel. So that's really all I have as an update. I will just add that we did test, and I think the test was since the last board meeting, we tested 238 people at our drive-through test. I think it went very well. The health department, both the state and received thank yous from both the state and the county health departments. I understand, I hear a lot of discussion about public vaccine sites. And I keep hearing that people keep asking me, is it true that Hampshire High School will be a public vaccine site? I've heard no official source say that there will be public vaccine sites. All the official sources that I've been engaged with are telling us that the vaccine will be administered by medical facilities, hospitals, CVS, Walgreens, those sorts of things. So I don't know where that rumor is coming from, but it's conceivable at some point as they roll out into April and May.
It's coming because the superintendent of schools communicated that in his updates to the staff in their collaborative council meetings, that they have gotten some kind of authorization from the state of Illinois, as far as I understand it. Again, this is secondhand, okay, but it's come from a couple of places that the high schools will be vaccination sites. What that means, I don't know if it's only for K-12 employees, because as I understand it, K-12 employees were moved up a level or different group level in the state guidelines, okay, as far as where they, I guess, rank as opposed to other employees. That has to do with how much, I think, hours you have in front of classes and stuff. So that's where the rumor started. So there's some teeth to it, but as far as whether or not it's going to be like open to the public, I don't know, or just to that staff. I mean, I wasn't included in any of it. So like,
well, the point I would make on that, and then I'll just leave this open to the other discussion related to COVID-19, but I do think that if there are public sites, then I think Hampshire High and the village showed very well on our test site, and I think we would obviously be considered. But at this point, that's not the way I understand it. The vaccine will be administered, and that's really all I wanted to add tonight.
Okay. Any further, sir?
If I could, I'd like to add just a comment on the COVID thing. I think it's important for us all to be aware that just because the vaccine is here, while that is extraordinarily good news, and to those who were involved in bringing it should deserve credit, we are not out of the woods yet. It is going to take a considerable amount of time to vaccinate, excuse me, everybody, and the tiered process is going to happen. And so I think as a group, we need to continue to maintain our education program and information strategy to tell people to continue to wear masks, to continue to social distance, and to continue to avoid being inside as much as possible with large groups of people. So I think one of the things that having a vaccine present can do is it can give a false sense of security. We are not done yet, and we still have a ways to go. So I just don't want us as a group to drop our vigilance in communicating to our residents, because until we get to a percentage of vaccinated people in our population, COVID, as it continues to unfortunately kill at record rates. I think we are now losing more people per day than died in 9/11. I think 4,235 people died yesterday as a result of COVID-19. We should not drop our guard, specifically as in the way that it comes to communicating to our residents. And I think from a PR committee, I think you guys have done a great job to this point, but I hope we continue to get the message out that until we get to a higher percentage of vaccinated in our population, that our residents are still at risk, specifically those with underlying conditions that make dealing with this virus so difficult. So I do want to make that commentary. It is great news, but it is a period of time that we're going to have to go through prior to really getting out of this thing, which they're predicting April, May timeframe till we get to a larger percentage of the population vaccinated. So I hope we don't stop communicating to our residents, and specifically this message that they need to continue to be vigilant, hopefully not gather for Christmas, as difficult as that may be. That's one of the events coming up that the people, at least that I'm reading, are very fearful of. And we're close to the end. If we can just hold on for a little bit longer and reduce as much death as possible, I think that that's something that we need to stay aware of. So,
Thank you, sir.
New Year's as well, Ryan. Don't forget New Year's in there. That's a big gathering holiday as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Eric. Thank you.
Okay. Village services.
So we're getting into starting the new year. We'll start talking with Waste Management about contracts, and their contract's going to be up, whether we decide to go to bid. We'll get the Village Services Committee together to make a recommendation to the board. The first step is I've asked Mr. Kushner with Waste Management to create a side-by-side analysis of all the services we currently have and what the cost is and all the services they provide and those various costs are, because we don't know what we don't know and what they don't provide. Once we have those, I'll bring that to the Village Services Committee for us to evaluate what's a good potential package, and then we'll work with Mr. Hedges to advise probably going out to bid on a suggested package to get options. I don't ever think somebody should automatically just get a contract renewal. I think they should have to look a little bit for it. And then we'll bring those bids and suggestions back to the board for consideration and approval. That being said, one of the services they do offer that I'm talking to him about potentially setting up for the village, as some of you may know, Kane County stopped their drop-off recycling program that they had done because of the pandemic. And Waste Management does offer a drop-off paper recycling day, like you can do 2 to 4 hours, whatever it is, where people can bring their papers and have them shred, and like on-site shredding kind of thing. So I'm talking to him about what those possibilities would look like, if there's costs, what options are, and once I hear back, I'll come back to the board with information on that. But I thought it'd be a good service for the residents of the village that may not have other options, and businesses for the village. That's all I have. Do you have anything else with Comcast or ComEd, not for anybody? No. People still bitching about internet. No. And I don't blame them. Downtown.
And rightfully so.
That's what I'm saying. I don't blame them. Downtown, like the older Hampshire and even the subdivision behind us, there are no companies, ComEd, AT&T, nobody's willing to run fiber into there. They just don't see it as a value. So I think we just need to be a little smarter when we start building on 72 and businesses want to run their fiber and their information in there, that we start saying, yes, and you have to cover these neighborhoods if you want that contract. So something to think about.
Public Works has an item. Yeah, I'll defer to Jay, because this is, I've seen this in our packet. I know nothing about it.
Okay, I did send this to trustee Coates a couple days ago. I just wanted him to see it beforehand. As you know, we've been working with Stanley Traska's organization, who's offered to donate 5 acres of property to the village and also build a building. Initially, we started out with the Cleary type building. Mr. Traska prefers a masonry style building, which is more expensive. So he's also agreed to cover those additional costs. They're still working on the cost. We just came to this design concept. They brought in an architect and space planner who's been working with Dave Starrick for the last about 3 weeks. And last week they took a visit over to Finger Grove to see their new public works garage, to see if there were any new fixtures or concepts there. And they did see some good ideas in terms of parking large vehicles.
Did they try to steal any of our trucks while we were there?
No, we didn't take any of theirs either. We did, I've been in there once before, and so, but I think it was very helpful, and Dave also made a good contact with their public works director, and they've already talked about some other things that they can share service and share information, and I think it's good for all of our department heads, as Lori Lyons does, she interacts quite frequently with other village department heads, so I think it was good for Dave and also for the architect to see that, so we're getting very close to a concept here, and right now we're waiting for final costs. And I'll be bringing this back to the Public Works Committee sometime in January with a funding method. But I know this was actually on the agenda the night that my contract was voted on a year ago, and I think we were trying to really push it through at that time, and I think we've come up with an alternative. If this turns out to be too expensive, that Plan A can still work. And so we have several options, but this is something I know was a very big priority for the village, so I wanted to bring this to you.
Have they priced precast?
This is actually block masonry.
Right.
And yes, he considered both options. It was really his choice which one. I think
for us, we should price out block versus precast.
It was represented to me as similar cost.
Oh, he's paying the cost of it?
Well, he's going to give us a price for the entire project, and we're going to negotiate something that we think we can afford. And that'll be part of the Public Works Committee and ultimately the Finance Committee and then the Village Board. Right now, I'm waiting for those costs. I expect them to come in around $1 million. I know they were close to $1.2 million when they went to precast, and I made it very clear that the village can't afford that. It's not that important for us to have the appearance of the building, particularly in that location, where most of the building won't be visible anyway. So the idea is to use like a face brick just on the portion that would face Rowell Road, which is a smaller portion of the building. Several things were modified after the architect got involved. At one time, we had 10 doors so that you could literally drive the truck straight through. Those doors are very expensive. At one time, the wash bays, which are now on the east side where the 2 double arrows are facing north and south, they were on the west end. But to take water all the way to the other end of the building was considerably more expensive. So the architect actually came up with some very good ideas that saved quite a bit of money. We haven't seen the final cost yet. At one point, we had a driveway all the way around the building. In this concept, the drive is only on the north side of the building and a little bit on the south. At one point, there were 60-some parking spaces. That's not likely to ever be necessary here. So this is getting closer to what I believe it's getting closer to what we had planned on. And again, if it'll be up to the village board whether you want to spend that kind of money when we present to you the financial package and the method of funding. But right now, this is proposed to be a contract for purchase, where Mr. Traska would hold the paper. We're not permitted to mortgage a property as a village, as a non-home rule community, but we can purchase it as long as we don't use the building as collateral. So that's just a kind of a brief update on where we are.
Anything further, Mr. Cove?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
EDC.
Well, that was a good lead-in. Just as a reminder, Karen Traska, the daughter of Stanley Traska, sits on our board, and we're grateful for the work that they've and the agreeability of them in working with us. So that's great to hear. We had our meeting on the December 9th, primarily with the focus. I think it was prompted during our last village board meeting that we should try to brainstorm ways in which we can help our local businesses during the pandemic as it got, as it continues to get more and more difficult here as the next few months go on. And so we had gotten together, and I wasn't really sure what to expect when we got together. However, as a testimony to the group of people that make up the BDC, they had come up with a series of really good suggestions that we had shared with Jay, and which I need to get with Jeannie Mayer as well to see, ways that we might be able to help. But some of the ideas that they had come up with is, maybe trying to organize Uber Eats or something called Toast, which is a different type of program to maybe help our local restaurants and things sort of help share some of the costs of trying to get their food delivered to people, specifically, maybe out of town. So that was one of the suggestions. The other was perhaps trying to poll to see if there were, local people in town that might be interested in doing some volunteer delivery, and then to emphasize to our local businesses, the more that they can communicate cleanliness and the fact that they are following the guidelines as much as possible, that will help to put at ease some of their consumers. So I thought those were some really good ideas. Obviously difficult to pull off, requires personnel and people, but hopefully we'll be able to add some value to our local restaurants and bars, excuse me. Then we've got the Vintage Hammer article just got completed. Again, thanks in large part to Jeannie's pro bono work. That will be coming out here shortly. I just received it this evening, but we'll be publishing that in the normal spots, including the Facebook page, the email, Instagram, and all sorts of other apps that I have no idea how to use personally. And then there was also the suggestion of a New Year's raffle, perhaps for specials. So I'm going to talk with Jeannie about that as well to see what she thinks in coordination with Jay. But other than that, our group really didn't. It was a shortened meeting intentionally, just because it was so close to the holidays. And last year we actually didn't even meet in December. But we wanted to get together because of the circumstances that we're in right now, to try to offer some guidance or just some, because that's what our board really does, is just give advice to maybe some things that our local businesses can do to help themselves through this crisis. Our next meeting will be the second Wednesday of the new year. Of course, I don't have that handy right now. That will be the 13th of January. So that will be the next time we get together.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Public relations. No, I'm sorry.
I was saying, I wasn't ready for this. Come on.
Bad Ed. Get to the money part
I
first.
didn't sleep through accounts payable.
Oh, we'll let that happen.
Finance has a couple of items. Before you, you'll have a reimbursement, $89.12 to be paid on or before December 23rd, 2020. Any questions?
I will entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $89.12.
So moved.
Oh, I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Klein.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Gajeki.
Aye.
Mr. Coe.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
And our regular account payable, $242,056.95 to be paid on or before December 23rd, 2020. Yes, Toby?
Page one.
Yes.
Why B&F Construction November services, November inspections?
Right.
I can speak to that.
Yeah,
No,
Go ahead,
Lord.
Ms. Lyons.
So the permits that were issued by BNF and our residents that received, like, let's say a fence permit that had their telephone number and all their information to call for inspections, those are all being finished by BNF. So we still do have a few little stragglers out there.
Okay.
They're smaller projects, not new homes or anything like that.
Any other questions? Yes,
Page 15.
page
So
15.
William Holmes open inspection for -2,000 and then engineering fees for -4,000. So
Lori, what are the credits to William Ryan?
Yep,
Other
so
business.
William Ryan Homes had 5 homes with temporary occupancy permits. All of those remaining outstanding items have been taken care of. So they're ready to exit the village, and we are shoring up or truing up the amounts owed to them and the amounts owed back to the village. So failed inspections and other professional fees.
So they're done?
William Ryan Homes that was in the Highlands, yes.
Any more questions? Motion, sir? Do you have a question?
This number is different from that one.
Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, is it $89 difference?
Oh, 89. Yeah, sorry. You are correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve accounts payable amount of $242,056.95.
so moved.
Second. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Pajeki,
Aye.
Mr. Coe,
Aye.
Ms. Klein,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
One other item. So remember, we talked about renewing our insurance and the premium went up. And then I believe Aaron, you asked Lori to go compare. She did that. She received about 8 responses from her little trustees group. If you'd like, she can send out her spreadsheet if you want her to talk about it. What do you want? Anything?
Just a summary, are we competitive?
Are we competitive?
So yes, so like Christine said, I did ask my group of 16 for their feedback. I received 8 responses. 3 of those were Gallagher clients as well. And that includes Gilbert's, Hampshire, and Pingree Grove. Those were the 3 Gallagher clients. And we experienced all of an increase between 6.8%, which was the Village of Hampshire, and 15%, which was Pingree Grove. Gilbert's came in at an increase of 8.5%. So their range of 6 to 15 was true within the group that responded to my request. Of the others that responded, all were participants in Illinois Risk Management Association's program. And 2 of those came back with a 0% increase. And the other 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, came back with an increase between slight or up to a 4% decrease. So I will tell you that we were with Illinois Risk Management Association previously. And when we switched away from them, we received substantial premium savings. And I believe it took approximately 4 years to get back to the level of premiums that we were at with Illinois Risk Management. So this didn't talk dollars, it just talked a percentage of increase. So that's where we're at.
Based on that, Trustee Kelly, I think next year we probably will go up a bit again.
Yep. Okay, anything further, ma'am?
Nothing further.
Thank you for,
Now we have public relations report.
Well.
I don't know how long it waited.
All right. So, Santa's holiday parade and photography session is this Sunday. It kind of came together rather nicely. Thanks to everyone that's been a part of trying to plan this. So, just by basic metrics, 20,000 people, 20,932 people, so almost 21,000 people have been reached by this event. We've had 858 responses, but you know, we don't know how many people are gonna come. Trustee Kelly and his wife worked really hard on the route, and Trustee Kelly's wife actually went and drove the route. The route is about 7 miles long, was it?
She said it was 7 miles long.
7 miles long, so, you know, again, it's publicity to trustee Krajewski's point is it's an outdoor event. We're looking, you know, the route is 7 miles long, you know, there's plenty of public sidewalk. If you're worried about being in people's yards and that kind of thing, there's plenty of distance in a 7 mile route that people can safely socially distance. And, you know, we still encourage everyone to wear masks and all that kind of thing. We have, as of right now, we have 32 lines on a spreadsheet full of people that have registered, their either company, organization, or individuals. It starts and ends at Hampshire Middle School, starts at 4:15. We're gonna do staging. Santa Claus will be at the Rose Garden doing socially distanced, pictures for kids through the Rose Garden window. The Rose Garden, is closed for that. So it's just Santa Claus that's inside the Rose Garden, and the kids can walk up outside, so families can have an opportunity to give their kids some normalcy and that kind of stuff.
What time is the picture?
From 2 to 4. And so if you've got kids that missed out on seeing Santa, you can do it through the window. And so,
Who's gonna talk to people too?
oh yeah, Santa's gonna have a microphone. Lord help us.
What? We don't need to make that sound louder.
It's BYOB, right?
Yeah, and so,
Bring it up.
No, Rose Garden has a liquor license.
Liquor license.
Oh, that's right.
so this was all kind of a harebrained idea, and we said, hey, let's do this.
Ever see Bad Santa?
Because nobody else in town would, and the fire department signed on, and we've got a lot of people coming that we just asked if they want to be a part of it, and they said, yeah, sure. We've got teachers from the schools, we've got principals from the local schools, so they can wave at their students and that kind of thing.
We have our new King County Board President.
Yep, Kareem Karag and Jeff Keitcher signed on to come, and so did Daniel Gasty. So, and Tom Copey, we can't forget about Tom Copey, he's coming as well.
Is he around here?
He's coming, in his international pickup.
I did do the, well,
They should show up to a board meeting here.
my wife did the concept of the route. I looked it over. We have received some flack for our route, and so I will publicly state why the route is the way it is. We have people that are talking about having trailers, and they're doing a scene on a trailer. It's outdoors, it's dark, there's a lot of lights we're encouraging people to use. So there were, 3 main things we had to consider. 1, everybody's safety, to make sure that we're not going out on the 72, we're not going out on the Allen or 20 or Big Timber or some of these major thoroughfares. That was for people's safety. So then 2, we said, well, with that out, how do we still maximize the amount of people we potentially could come near without being obscene and having a 20-mile parade route as some. We didn't have like the birthdays that we have to hit along the route. So how do we maximize it and still be somewhat respectable of the people in the parade? And how do we also not have it be a quarter mile just down State Street where everybody jumps on top of each other and then nobody's socially distanced and we're not practicing good behavior. So that's how we got to the route that we did. We tried to stay on these sub-main roads, those that go the longest distance and straight. So we're not just going down every neighborhood. There are people that are upset that we're not hitting Lakewood Community and that we're not hitting the subdivision off of Allen Road. For those communities, I apologize, but I stick by our guns that this is the best route we could do. We're also not coming down 72. We're just crossing State Street and then crossing State Street again. So,
and this also allows us to have the parade.
In Hampshire Hills too, did you?
Yep.
yes.
Yeah. We got flack for that, but we also, from doing the parade, that's Trenchtown Getzelman where it gets narrow.
Oh, you don't want to be.
That was bad. The couple of times we went down there with all the fire trucks and heavy equipment and that kind of stuff. The other thing this route allowed us to do was start and stop in the same place so that people could come to HMS and assemble their vehicles and then come to HMS at the end if they have to and disassemble their vehicle. And they're off the roadway and their parking lot is there. So again, it was a safety.
Collecting food?
Yes, we're collecting food donations for the Burlington Hampshire Food Pantry, where in speaking with the Burlington Hampshire Food Pantry, they are having trouble getting dish soap and laundry detergent from the Northern Illinois Food Bank. That those are two things that they cannot get. So of course, the normal donations of food, but they're really asking if you can to donate laundry detergent and dish soap.
And drop off at the middle school?
So,
And throughout the route.
and we're gonna do it along the route. And so we're gonna have a truck with a trailer and we're gonna be standing on the trailer and hopefully collecting as much as we possibly can.
And Santa and his elf will be in.
So people are gonna be handing food and stuff to you on the trailer in the dark.
Yeah, but we're gonna light that trailer up like a Christmas tree, so there'll be plenty of light.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. We got spotlights and everything. We're on it.
Oh, I-
The parade, the donation vehicle will be the last one on the route so that we can stop and then not get in the way of the parade.
Good.
And Santa's looking for donations of blackberry brandy.
Yeah. And we'll say that Santa's got a very special elf this year that is also gonna get to ride on the fire truck, but we'll leave it at that. We'll announce it all on.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
I will say, I forget the guy's name, the radio personality.
Oh, Randall Ray.
Randall Ray was talking about it on his Facebook feed and said,
Yeah.
we need more communities to do these type of things, and he was really. proud of
Yeah.
that.
He also,
Ray.
he also,
He talked about it on the radio.
he talked us to,
He's a word.
he was a good guy. Let's just leave it at that. But he talked about it on WLSAM in the morning for us, and then he shared it on his social media, and so we got a lot of traction from him, so
It was about like communities doing good things for their community, not encouraging the whole area to come to it.
So, and Governor Pritzker did put out on Facebook and social media today that we should be discouraging gathering in large numbers indoors. And he specifically didn't mention anything about outdoor events, and so this is an outdoor
You're
event.
saying you mentioned Hampshire?
Yeah, no, he didn't say anything about an outdoor event, so.
Off the PR committee.
All we're trying to do is bring some normalcy to some of these families and try to do it in a safe way, and hopefully it turns out into a good event, and
Yeah.
if it works out well, maybe it can be done next year. Maybe this could turn into a new tradition or something, because everybody seems really enthralled, as far as politicians go, on either side of the aisle, and the different organizations that want to jump in, and it's pretty cool.
I will say, in talking about the normalcy, I know Santa has some elves helping with Christmas letters and just making sure kids' wishes are heard, and there have been some letters that talk about how hard things are right now and that they wish it was easier for mom and dad. And so if we don't think this is affecting kids at all, these are little kids writing this, where you gotta really hopefully have a teacher friend that can help decipher some of this writing. Something like this is really good for these kids, so.
They had Tuesday, they had a food truck at the Elston Sports Complex. I was taking my truck to the dealer. It was lined, the entire sports complex was lined, thousands, all the way out to McLean Boulevard. So if you've ever been in the sports complex
Oh, yeah.
and how big that is, it was line after line all the way out to McLean Boulevard. When I dropped my truck off and on the way back, there was still probably 3,000-4,000 cars. So it's worse than what you really think.
Yeah.
So, and decorations will be provided at the Santa's Workshop by the Village Chamber.
They will?
I don't want to leave that out, because otherwise it would just look like a restaurant with a fat guy with a beard. He puts pillows underneath, I know.
I'm gonna buy 4 bags.
There you go.
All right, is there anything else for the public relations?
I don't know that there's anything else we can talk about. So,
No. Planning and zoning,
No report from me.
public safety,
Nothing, no report.
Everyone's safe.
safe.
everyone's safe.
safe.
All right, field and trails to finish up this portion of the agenda.
No report,
Oh.
except I'm excited about getting my second trail along.
Are you gonna make
70.
Are you gonna make sure your trails are nice and cleared off so that people can stand socially distanced?
I've got my shovel ready.
Ready?
All right, any new business or other announcements before we adjourn to executive session, section 2C1, performance review of a specific employee, not including compensation.
Nope.
Everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
This will be the last time we meet in twenty, no.
It is the announcement. Mr. McNamara.
Yeah, so we will be having a special board meeting on December 28th at 7 PM here to discuss our levy and SSA levy, so.
Why are we meeting?
Because we just miss each other that much.
No, why are we meeting?
Trustee Coe, I'd like to explain that. I want to appreciate your indulgence here first. I would say I'd apologize, but I really don't think that's appropriate. Our staff has been really busy. We just were not prepared in time to get the levy and everything ready for this meeting tonight and get the public notice posted 10 days ago. So we missed the deadline and we'll be much better prepared. So I appreciate your indulgence on that.
Good enough.
So everybody will be getting a delivered copy of this notice.
The cops get to come to the.
You're coming to see us?
Yeah.
When are they coming so I can be there?
I have no idea. I haven't received it yet. When did?
The deadline is, will be Saturday at 7 PM, but we expect to have it out Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Oh,
Just for sake of
I gotta hire
efficiency in the
up.
future, so we know we have a special meeting and we're at a meeting, couldn't we just get the letter at the meeting about the special meeting?
It doesn't need to come from a police
Well,
officer.
it needs to
It's
be
sitting
signed.
right there.
No, I know, but I'm asking, is there some rule that says
That's the rule. Those are the rules, how we have to.
They have to go to the home.
Yes.
Is it must be left at the place of residence or abode of the village president and members of the board of trustee,
Gotcha.
not less than 24 hours before the date and time of the proposed special meeting.
All right. Give old.
Hey.
So if you live in a van down by a river.
All right.
Who makes that rule?
It's,
it's a long-standing rule. It's been here for a long time.
Hampshire Municipal Code, section, one, dash two, dash six, E.
Well, it gives the cops something to do, right? Because they didn't.
Hey, if they ain't Dunkin' Donuts, they can deliver letters, right?
Jeez.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna get involved.
Okay, with that, Mr. Mayor, now we have a little technical work to do if we could. Trustee Robinson and trustee Krajewski, if you could disconnect from this meeting, please, and connect to the other meeting, to the executive session.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, how come you were no video today?
I don't know. I've been having that problem the last few times. It was working the first time we did this. Maybe my computer got the COVID or something. I don't know. But I haven't been able to get video the last couple of times.
Ryan, you're in.
There's our boys.
Mr. Robinson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, we're officially in open session. Mr. Hedges and Mr. Ray have joined us. Ms. Klein, you want to review what we did or what?
You can.
All right, we do have your performance review, Mr. Hedges. I would tell you that your review came in real well.
Oh, man, I was gonna mess with him. I was gonna ask you to get that one.
Unfortunately, we can't keep you.
Must have been that intersection that we just picked.
Yeah. No, the scores overall, and we will certainly give you this report. Every person has the same report.
That might conflict with our other.
No, 10 days.
Pardon me?
It takes 10 days. We just talked about that too.
I didn't hear it.
It takes 10 days for that to come into effect. So
Oh,
Yes,
live it up for the next.
Rights are okay.
Input form. You
have my pretty colored cup.
So keep up the great work. We will, moving forward, want to do a performance review on the rest of the staff as well. So we get a schedule put together so that everybody, Dave will be reviewed by his staff, Mark will be reviewed by his staff, that type of thing.
Okay. 360 review then.
We have.
That Josh should be reviewed by somebody.
Josh, too.
Can we give you that assignment, please? You can handle Josh.
Josh is doing an outstanding job, so.
Yes, you are. Very good. Very good.
Commend you as well, Josh, for all the work that you do. Jay would not be as successful as he has been without the work that you do.
I tell him that about every week.
And it truly is a fact. We did talk about that and it does not go unnoticed, Josh. Seriously, every single one of us see it.
Even me.
And
Well, I would like to thank you all first of all. I know this was a bit of an awkward process, but I do think it's important that I get feedback from all of you, so I know what you expect. Now that this is all over, I just want to say I remember this, I know Jeff, that you remember really well, this list of 23 items that I met with Mark and Brad about a year ago right now. And we made a lot of progress on a lot of things. I'm proud of what the board has accomplished, but also what staff has accomplished. And I'm sorry Lori's not with us anymore, but she's also made a great progress on our audits. Trustee Klein, we're getting real close to the 2019 audit. So it's been a real chore, but once we get the audits completed, then I can start providing you real financial reports, which is the one thing that I'm the least comfortable about. I'm confident that we're in a good financial position, but I just wish that I could report better report. It's something I've never dealt with before in my career, but we're getting.
It's also pandemic.
It is a pandemic. Yeah. So, but our staff has really worked hard, so I inherited a great village board and a great staff, and it's been a real treat.
I'd like to go on record, and we said this in executive, but we would not have made it through to where we are with COVID-19 if we weren't in the seat.
I appreciate that.
And so I know it wasn't on anybody's list of priorities or even a thought back in December when you were hired, but you've done an outstanding job.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
It wasn't just COVID.
Well,
I would have quit.
Speak your piece.
We would have accomplished half the stuff we've done if he didn't lead us to the promised
I'd
land.
say 3/4
I think everybody should bring him Christmas cookies.
before it's too late. You can't.
You don't want my favorite.
Do it, as long as it's edible. Okay.
Well.
Bring him a
legally.
steak. Bring him some meat.
There you go.
Yeah, the spiral, I kind of like those honey baked spiral hams. Nothing expensive. You know.
Honey baked?
Oh, those $50.
How about a death pheasant?
Actually, my dad taught me how to cook pheasants.
All right, well, then, one of the next major tasks for both of you, and I know, we've talked about it for a while. There's always been concerns about EEI, and the work that they do and, you know, the amount of bills. I mean, I looked at their bills payable for today was over 20-something thousand. I don't see a lot going on. I know, so we just want to make sure as a board that we're getting the best they do a good job. And I'm sure that all, engineering companies charge about the same. But we just want to make sure they've been here for so long that, you know, they're doing the best they can, price wise, not, you know, I looked at the bills payable today, there's a $2,000 charge for Route 72 and State Street water project.
They've been out there shooting a lot.
Already billed for today, you know, today. There's $6,000 for District 300, which I'm sure is probably for the new school site up at Oakville.
I don't want to debate it all, but I do want to let you know that Tim did call me. He's really concerned about meeting the IDOT deadline, and he asked me if he could begin work on that contract that we just approved up to 2,000.
So the 2,000 that's in there today is part of the 53,777?
I went through 2018, the entire year of their billing. It's like senior project manager. I mean, they all get the buffet line on every bill.
One thing you may have noticed is that Tim is our guy now. I had to talk with Brad about Julie, and Brad both kind of sharing our responsibilities. They're two of the most senior people in the business. Julie's now a named partner. Tim has been there. I think Tim was actually Brad's roommate in college, so he's been there forever, but he's not as senior. And Tim knows the village very well. He's really their expert on groundwater management, stormwater management. I do think you're absolutely right. I believe we will go out. I will recommend to you that we go out sometime in the spring for a full request for qualifications for engineering. Josh and I talked about it many times. We chose the building. I chose the building department first because I thought that was the most desperate need we had this summer. And we're still working on that transition. I had a conversation with Jim, the CEO of Silverthorne Horns this week. He has some concerns about the fact that Safeco was asking for stamped architectural drawings, which by the way are required by code, and BNF was kind of slipping on that a little bit. So that's another thing, but I was able to work with Jim and explain to him, Logan's actually their guy, and he had a baby last week, his wife did, so the president stepped in and he got a little bit snippy with us, but we were able to calm him down, and by the way, Safeco came through really well and helped us out there. So my point is this, that that's a transition that'll take us a little longer to finish. We'll do both of those at one time, but once that's, we'll have that pretty well digested, I think, by the end of the year. And sometime probably February, March timeframe, we will go out to bid for.
Fair enough.
And I have four companies already in my list to approach.
I have a concern. I mean, I don't disagree, right? We've all talked about EEI for years. From my perspective, do not feel comfortable that we have all of the information about the village that EEI has in their possession.
No, they have to give it to us by law.
No, I understand that, but I think we should be able to get it. I think we should be able to access it. I don't think that we should have to call somebody to get it. And so
we've talked about this once before, I think, at a board meeting, and for us to manage those kinds of files, to have the software and the hardware here to do that, I don't think that's very practical.
I understand that.
We can request anything we need from them. You know what the last map is, what's the other map? It has all the ones. Yeah, the Atlas map. So we have access to all that. They are now sending me an updated zoning map once a month. So every time we change zoning on something, we have a current map to look at, not something that's 3 years old.
Is it in our current agreement that they have to turn it over?
Anything, yes. It's not only in our agreement, but Brad and I have talked about it multiple times. He knows that we're going to go out for bid at some point. In fact, when he gave that report to you, sort of his annual report,
Sales pitch.
Well, I offered him an opportunity to review his work because I felt that all of you had questions and I thought it was important for them to speak for themselves. So I'll let you judge what he said. I'm not going to take an opinion on that. He used the time as he chose to. So you probably all have your different opinions about how you think he handled that. But he and I have had this serious conversation several times, and I did share with you several times. I've asked them to do some things for free, and they have. So I don't disagree. We need to go out. They've been, some people say, running the village for 30-some years, but it will be a big change. It will be a big transition, a real challenge for our staff to go through that and teach a new company. But it's something that we need to do.
I mean, at the end, we might find that we are getting the best.
We probably are, but if you just look at I mean, everybody on one particular project, the whole staff of the company's in the buffet line getting the bill.
Yeah, I think that's the concern, at least mine, isn't that DES is not capable, they don't do things, they're not a good partner. I think they're all of those things. They do roll up the bus.
Yes, and I don't have any experience recently with any other companies.
Well, that's what we call it, you bring a consultant into a company and they bring, it's like 2 people from the company that's hiring them, there's 14 consultants around. Like, I don't need 14 people here. That's, sometimes consultant firms lose the contract because they behave in that way. And that's how it's starting to feel to Toby or to Chuck B. Coates.
Look at the bills. I mean, it's.
Well, I would encourage you, if there's anything you think that's not this extraordinary or out of the ordinary, please let me know and I'll have.
No, I didn't look at a particular road or a project. You just go down and start looking at the bills. And they're all in the buffet line on every one of them. They all get a piece.
I know I've shared this with you before. I've told you about it before, but I haven't shared it with you. They now give me a run every project, every month, going back as many years as the project has been out there. So we don't just get a bill, we get an invoice, or we get an invoice, but then we also get a spreadsheet that says, for example, for Stanley East project, which is probably 3 years in the making now. I have a complete year, history to date of that project and how much was invoiced for that. And every month they update that for me. So they are much more transparent than they did before. And
and I'd like to add, I mean, if we're going to go out to bid, I just want to caution us against, I think, just comparing hourly rates. I think we have to pull similar projects and review, because to the point that Toby's saying, the only way you can really find out if another company behaves in the same way is to look at a bill that they charge another municipality on a project. I don't know what's legal to see, what's not legal to see, whatever, but I mean, it's just far more complicated than the cost per hour. That's my only piece that I want to say. And it's how does that company handle a project, from how many people do they apply to it, how efficient they, how efficient are they in doing that, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be my only piece of advice, is that we can't stick to just the cost per hour.
Right.
Right. I mean, you're absolutely. And I remember, Trustee Krajewski, that by state law, we're not even allowed to look at the costs. We must look at qualifications for both architectural and engineering professional services agreements. But, they're probably, I know that they're a major sponsor for Metro West and several other council of governments. So they probably represent 30 communities, similar to B&F. They're both probably the 2 largest in the Chicago area. But I have 4 companies that have approached me in the last 6 months to be our engineering firm. So we have plenty of options to look at. And I think it's worth going through the process. It's healthy for them to do it, to know that they have to work for our business.
Agreed.
Developer deposit for the E300?
Pardon me?
A developer deposit for the E300 site?
I don't believe we have it yet. There's still
We just got charged $6,000 that will be paying out of pocket for it.
Well, that will be reimbursable.
Well, I understand that. Sometimes harder after the fact to get the money.
Waiting for the development agreement.
Well, and plus, now my concern with, and part of this is with Crown. Crown's been dragging their feet, and now they're gonna be looking at January and February with the hope of getting the school put in by the second week of March. Well, that timeline falls apart, and we don't have a developer deposit taking this money back.
I mean, if the school decides to cancel, is that what you're saying?
If the project doesn't go forward, because the Crown gonna come back to the village. I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna come back to the village and they're gonna ask for a reduction in this fee and that fee to make their development more approachable.
Right.
And if the village doesn't agree to that, are they gonna then say, well, we're not gonna move forward and the school can go pound sand? I think is probably the way I think it's headed, because I don't know why they're dragging their feet so long to begin with.
Well, I'll certainly get a hold of District 300 and see if we get something in writing from them directly, bypassing Brown entirely for that purpose. I understand what you're saying. That makes sense.
Crown still has to sell the property, so they can't move forward unless Crown sells the property. As long as they know that there's a bill being run up for our services, I don't know, I didn't see if there was anything for Mark on there, but, right, just this one bill today was for
Mark's had several conversations, we've had several conference calls with everybody from the CEO, COO to the attorney.
So before you know it, we're gonna be up 10 grand, and then that's coming out of our pocket until we get reimbursed, so. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I hope it moves forward just as they were planning, but they've already pushed it back, what, twice, 3 times?
Twice now.
That's true.
Well, I will say that the advantage to pushing it back is that they decided to do a full plat for the entire subdivision now instead of just the 300 north homes. So that's the reason. They'll be coming back with an entire subdivision plat for all 941 homes. And that means they can just keep building. They don't have to, as you recall, because you've been in some of those meetings, they wanted to get a development agreement that applied to all 941 lots, but only really behind the 350 to the north.
Right.
So they were kind of we wanted some trust that, we'll build what you want to build down there, but we don't want to show it. And now they've decided, I think partially because of the school, but also because I was very demanding that, look, if you want concessions, you're gonna have to put them in front of us now, before anything goes forward. And we met twice just for that purpose, and Dan just can't seem to speak up and say what he wants. So we will have a complete development agreement now, not something that's just vague about the southern portion of it, so that'll be an entire plat.
All right, anything further before Mark has a heart attack over there?
Sorry, Mark, my phone was in the boardroom, so I couldn't answer you.
Go back your bed right now.
That's my bedtime.
Anything else to add, gentlemen, online? Mr. Robinson?
No.
None
So
from me.
moved.
All right, gentlemen.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Yes. Stay safe, please.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Them do it, they keep missing.
Third.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mrs. Klein? Aye. Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Jackie?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Merry Christmas.
Everyone.